Hi everyone. Now that we are on Saturday, this last week we had some good discussions and good stories. Ashwin's this premium story on NDS is doing quite well, and we got the Taiwan discussion. Amitabh PP also plus the 5G discussion with Professor Bhaskar Rao. I think was the highlight of last week. But now, looking forward, where do we go from here? What do we have? From my side, I have a Monday discussion on HCon. Very interesting coming up. Can we put that out as Hooks Corner on Monday? Is what we'll have to decide. Surya?
I think next week is a little fuzzy given the fact that coronavirus is exerting its influence and keeping people indoors. But offhand, you can look at, the Chinese had a Mars landing today, and I expect early next week the rover Zhurong will start getting mobile on the planet. So that's something interesting to look forward to. Ashwin, any dope you can give us on that?
There are two very interesting things. Now, the first question is why Mars? Now, obviously, to land a rover on Mars, that comes after the US and the USSR. So, first of all, China is the third country. Now, why is everyone going to Mars? From a habitation point of view, there is sunlight, enough temperatures for living. And given the global climate crisis, to establish dominance on Mars is essential if you're going to be considered a superpower, which obviously China wants to be. Now, the second point is the bigger point is the International Space Station that China is seeking, and NASA itself has confirmed that will be by 2022. Now, if that happens, that's a rival to the ISS, which is the International Space Station, which was set up by the United States and UK and a number of other countries. China was deliberately excluded at that point. So, obviously, there is going to be a rivalry here. What form it will take, it is not sure. What we
Where is
do
India
know
in
is
this? Where is India
uh,
in this?
Nitin, it's very hard to say where India is in all this. My feeling is that India will join the conglomerate of countries because there is a group of Western nations and some Asian nations as well. So I suspect that India will join the International Space Station. But where it goes from here, I see a rivalry between the United States and China. China
So,
has
do you have a
already,
story? So, will you attempt a story on this?
yes, yes, because there's certainly weaponization on the Chinese part.
And see, the Chinese other issue is that about the debris that fell the other day. Because last year, 2 years
Absolutely.
ago, when India did that test, ASAT test, we had been very careful. So I think so. Surya, maybe a story and a discussion. Shall we attempt that?
Yeah, in fact, I always prefer something written because it's something you can go back to. Um, but perhaps a combination of the two could work because you do have a lot of interest in videos. So
Yeah.
ideally, combination of the two. Uh,
Amitabh, you had that specialist, no, that Reddy in Mumbai who
Yeah,
spoke.
he's in Bangalore. I think he's now with the Jane's Defense, and he's been writing for us in the past. I'm sure he'll be interested there. I have a contact in Australia also who looks at space a lot. We could probably do that. And since Ashwin is talking about rivalries, I'm not sure whether how much collaboration between China and Russia there is in setting up the competition to the ISS. And one just off the beat kind of thing on rivalries. Both Russia and the United States are planning to shoot the first movie in space. A director and actress from Russia have been identified, and that's last year. I think it was Tom Cruise announced that he, along with in collaboration with Elon Musk and
It
SpaceX,
could
were
be.
probably going to shoot
It could be
the
as
first.
one as we heard, perhaps that aside that you just mentioned. But let's look at this Surya and combination of a discussion and about that Australian maybe specialist. Get him to write, and then Ashwin can do a story also. Maybe a combination of the two.
yeah, yeah.
Discussion.
I was
Moving
also
on.
thinking.
Yeah, both
I was
complete.
also thinking of, this is a continuation really. We had Mohammed Nasheed, the attack on him, the Maldivian ex-president, earlier this week. and he's now in Germany. So Amitabh, maybe kind of follow up on his situation in Germany. Maybe a little thing on how he is and what happened.
Yeah, sure. And I think what I think what Nitin's going to say is what is the situation in Maldives in terms of radicalization, which is what
ideally,
look at. I mean, they're investigating that. Initially, there were reports of IS, no confirmation of that. But they had made their first claim last year when they attacked some boats in an atoll. But radicalization, again, the Maldives, they've not been sitting on their hindquarters. I mean, in sense, they have a NCTC, a counterterrorism group, which has been working on radicalization. I think it'll be interesting to see how much they've managed to actually do in terms of getting people, both the youth and those who are extreme religiously oriented, to get on board.
So maybe a counter-radicalization strategy story on counter-radicalization in Maldives. If it is working, it's not working, something of that kind. Because they had, remember, they had given the highest per capita contribution to
absolutely,
ISIS. So perhaps
amazing.
That is a story to do, perhaps.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah. So closer to Maldives, Sri Lanka, next week, 18th would be the 13th anniversary of the end of Ilam War 4. Prabhakaran was killed that day and the war ended. And there's been no closure for the Tamils yet. There is a lot of residual resentment and otherwise. Maybe
there's vandalization of some statues also, right, in the north?
Yes. There was a war memorial of the Tamils, I think, in Mullaitiru. That was done. But also the Sinalas have also sort of pushed back and said that Sri Lanka is being targeted by the human rights lobby for what it did, like that. So maybe there is a discussion. I'll just see. In fact, I'm going to speak to someone in Sri Lanka at 12:30, one of the think tank fellows. So maybe I'll get him on board and do one of the gists on that day, 18th. 18th is Tuesday, I think. 18th is Tuesday. So maybe the gist can be on that. And the overall, to Sri Lanka, like you had Easter bombings a year ago. The Maldives this terror attack happened. So is this Indian vehicles, are they also vulnerable to various issues? Maybe that can be brought in also. Let's see.
And the India angle, maybe, with the East-West container terminal happening, other issues, is India putting pressure on Sri Lanka to
what happened to that? It just dropped down the river.
Right now, everybody is busy with COVID, fighting COVID. I think the entire army in Sri Lanka is in charge of fighting COVID. So let's see. But somebody's taking notes. I'm hoping that will be all this that we're discussing.
Just one point, since we are roughly on the subject of terrorism, there's a piece that Prem Mahadevan has sent me, who's been writing for us every now and then. We even did a video chat with him. He's a specialist on terrorism sitting in Europe. And he's done a piece on looking back at the role of the ISI and Dawood and all that during the Mumbai blasts, so many years ago, 1993, if I'm not mistaken. So it's an analysis that he had written earlier for a European academic publication. He's offered it to us. So it's something that should be interesting for our premium section, I was thinking.
Sure. If he sent it, then just slot it for premium then for next week.
Yeah.
He's already sent it. He's already sent that. That reminds me, Meenakshi, this Australia, there's one flight which was to take back some expats, Australian expats. What happened to them? Some 60% people didn't make it, or 40% people didn't make it on that flight. And have the Australians amended that strict rule that they will be jailed and all that? Is there a story there? Why are they being punished or why are they being targeted? Let's look at that maybe. Yeah.
All right.
And also Australia, China, what's happening on that front? A bit of study and then get somebody from there.
So there was an interesting Quad Plus One meeting. I think it was yesterday. Harsh Shringla was there, the American Deputy Assistant Secretary Wendy Sherman. So Japan, Australia, but they added South Korea, Vietnam, and New Zealand as well.
Okay. Oh, that is that.
This is a ministerial.
That is that.
No, it's
FS level.
Yeah, I don't know. FS level, yeah.
How that they've done? Is it seven countries, right? 4+3.
Yeah.
New Zealand,
Yeah.
South Korea, and Vietnam.
Yeah, correct.
And if you noticed in the last few days, there's been an uptick in the exchange between Beijing and Wellington, so clearly there's a bit of a downturn in the New Zealand-China relationship also. Maybe
Yeah.
something
Yeah,
going forward.
That is to be looked at, Surya. But I am more interested in this resilient. What is it called? It was called
Resilient
something.
supply chains.
Supply chain. We had
Supply
talked about
chains.
it. That this is no, not just resilient supply chain. It is called something. Coalition of something. Coalition of. I remember those 4+3. We had discussed this. Let's do a story on that. Actually, what's happening there? Harsh Shringla, has India issued any statement on that meeting yesterday?
Mm-hmm.
Not yet.
I'm not aware. There's something to check up.
Yeah, we
Worth
need to
checking
check
out.
on that. Let's check on that.
Hmm.
Okay. Also, we have to keep a watch on France. Macron and the military and the veterans are clashing. No?
Yeah, that's a story. That's a
It's a
story.
story. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, if you
Let's,
recall, de Gaulle was targeted by his own army.
The day of the jackal was
Please.
the day of the jackal was made on that, the movie
Yeah.
and the novel. So I think let's look at
That's an
that.
interesting story.
Yeah, let's look at that very seriously. And what is closer home? Anything? Afghanistan? Anything expected, Anka?
Yeah, so a big talking point on is the Americans abandoning Afghanistan to all terror groups. Now, there's been a development overnight which acknowledged both by the Taliban and by the Republic's negotiating team that Mullah Baradar met with part of his team and a couple of the Republic's team, and they've agreed to restart talks after Eid, which is, today is the last day. So.
There was some attack, is it? Yesterday there was some attack.
Yeah,
there were continuous attacks. A mosque was attacked. Apparently, the cleric is a pro-Taliban cleric, but that could be a narrative that the Taliban wants so that it's put onto Islamic State. And then that horrendous carnage outside the school in Kabul last weekend, which is absolutely nuts.
So I also heard something which I need to confirm, and if you all can confirm also about not everything not being well between ISI and Taliban, and Haqqani network is being put front and center by the ISI, and which is not liked by Taliban, which is now directly talking to the Americans. So they are saying, Americans are saying, then talk to Indians or something of that kind. So let's look at that angle also. What we can do. These are some straws in the wind, but we'll see. The final thing I want to say is Yuval Ramani's book. You were saying, Surya, you'll read and do some books corner. The week after, right? We have something scheduled for this coming week. So we'll look for next week, and we need some more, as we heard. Oh, by the way, there's a lot of buzz about our story on Bhutan-China talks and that roadmap and all that. There's a lot of unease, some concerns in Bhutan about how did we get that story, all that. So maybe we'll follow up and see what the Chinese also are looking at. Just keep a watch on any Chinese statements or anything on Bhutan. We should look at. And finally, I think, Surya, you started off by saying this one, what you call COVID spreading all over and lockdowns happening. Maybe a shortcut or even a small story is required from Japan to Europe. How they're dealing with it.
Yeah, we do need a roundup, I think, and especially in Southeast Asia, where it was touted that everything was going fine. Japan, imagine, and South Korea also. So I wonder if Israel too will hit at some point. Have they reopened prematurely? Is something to watch out for.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, since you are mentioning Israel, the numbers percentage-wise of population that's been inoculated even more than Israel is Seychelles, but the cases there are increasing as well.
After two jabs.
Yeah.
That's interesting, and that's worrying basically. But anyway, let's catch up on Monday. Then, unless there is anything else, Ashwin, you think you need to flag?
I think just to bring it back to China, after this whole Bangladesh reaction and the pressure on New Zealand, and the fact that the US has waded in on this whole China-Australia dispute. Blinken has made a statement. I think we should look at the harsh remarks or the tough remarks China has made on various countries and how they have reacted, because they've all reacted in very different ways. Sri Lanka has said something different, as you and I discussed. Bangladesh. So, how each country has responded to Chinese aggression, at least in the Indo-Pacific area, would be very interesting, because
See,
all of them have had.
if you can do that research and put it out, a good story to do. Just see in the last 6 months what has happened. You do
Yes.
that, starting with Bangladesh and going backwards. I think that
Yeah.
podcast is up already, right? What we
Yes.
did yesterday. Okay.
Yes, it's up.
So, that is there. And then Subrat needs to be told to look for a podcast for coming week, and we'll see. So we chat on Monday morning. Then in the meantime, if there are stories, obviously we'll put it out on our group, right? So see you guys.
Yeah, okay. Stay safe.
For next week. Stay safe. Stay home.
Thank
Happy weekend.